Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe alongside Nick Wright, Kevin Wilds, Chris Broussard is with us on a Monday morning. Hey, coming up, will the Cowboys now sign Dak Prescott to a long-term deal? Have you seen the new and, shall we say, improved Rob Gronkowski? And will the Patriots struggle now that Tom Brady is no longer, forget on the field, in the locker room? We have those stories and more coming up over the next hour, but we are starting this morning's show with some disturbing news. NASCAR announcing last night that a noose was found in driver Bubba Wallace's garage at Talladega Superspeedway in Lincoln, Alabama on Sunday. Bubba has been outspoken about the Black Lives Matter movement the last couple of weeks. He did call on NASCAR to ban the Confederate flag. Late last night, he released the following statement. He said, in part, "Today's despicable act of racism and hatred leaves me incredibly saddened and serves as a painful reminder of how much further we have to go as a society and how persistent we must be in the fight against racism." Over the last several weeks, I've been overwhelmed by the support from people across the NASCAR industry, including other drivers and team members in the garage. Together, our sport has made a commitment to driving real change and championing a community that is accepting and welcoming of everyone. Nothing is more important, and we will not be deterred by the reprehensible actions of those who seek to spread hate. As my mother told me today, they are just trying to scare you. This will not break me. I will not give in, nor will I back down. I will continue to proudly stand for what I believe in. Now, NASCAR also released a statement. They said, quote, "Late this afternoon, NASCAR was made aware that a noose was found in the garage stall of the 43 team. We are angry and outraged and cannot state strongly enough how seriously we take this heinous act. We have launched an immediate investigation and will do everything we can to identify the person or persons responsible and eliminate them from the sport. As we have stated unequivocally, there is no place for racism in NASCAR, and this act only strengthens our resolve to make the sport open and welcoming to all." Bubba Wallace receiving a lot of support on social media. This from LeBron James. "Sickening. Bubba Wallace, my brother, no, you don't stand alone. I'm right here with you, as well as every other athlete. I just want to continue to say how proud I am of you for continuing to take a stand for change here in America and sports. NASCAR, I salute you as well." So there's a lot to get to here. Nick, I want to start with you and first get your reaction to what was said and what happened yesterday.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like you saw the bubbling lead up to this in the reaction from some NASCAR fans to the fact that they weren't able to fly proudly their traitor flag any longer by the plane that flew over the stadium with the Confederate flag saying "Defund NASCAR," with the little mini rally outside of Talladega of folks proudly flying the Confederate battle flag. And I know Wilds is going to probably talk more about the Bubba Wallace and NASCAR piece of this. I'm going to use my time here because if anything good can come of this, it will be if people better know their history and the history of that noose and the history of lynching in America. Emmett Till, who probably is the most well-known victim of lynching in America, if he had not been lynched, he'd be 78 years old today. Carolyn Bryant, the woman who lied about Emmett Till doing something to her that set that entire process in motion, is still alive to this day. The trial for the people who murdered Emmett Till, even though they had admitted to it to Life magazine when they were found not guilty, happened right around the time Bill Russell was being drafted by the Celtics. I say all that to say this. This is not ancient history. And in some ways, this is not even history. Just in the last 10 days here in New York City, at Van Cortlandt Park and at Marcus Garvey Park, a couple blocks from where I live, nooses were found hanging in trees. The police declined to investigate the one at Van Cortlandt for reasons I don't understand. We'll see what happens at Marcus Garvey. Since George Floyd was murdered on May 25th, there have been 6 instances nationwide of people of color being found hanging from trees in this country. Now, we don't know what happened to all of those people, but it sure seems to be a horrifying trend over the last 30 days. And so what I think you are seeing And what you saw yesterday and this weekend, as far as the Confederate flag and then the noose being hung in Bubba Wallace's locker, is folks pushing back for something that matters an immense amount to them. And that is the ability to continue being racist. It is the ability to have their way of life, which so much of it is tied to there is a group less than I am. No matter how poor, uneducated, no matter my level of success or lack of success, at least I'm white and you're not. And the fact that you even have NASCAR now saying, we must evolve, it is terrifying to those people. And so they are lashing out. And so it is incumbent on all of us to stay all the more vigilant, because as the world ekes towards progress, those that are pulling against it are going to pull with all their might, and they're going to do it in increasingly scary ways. And to me, that's what the noose in Bubba Wallace's locker represented, Wilds.
Well said, Nick. I wanted to talk about responsibility. I think NASCAR and law enforcement have a responsibility to find this person. NASCAR said they were going to eliminate them from the sport. Law enforcement should prosecute them to the utmost extent of the law. NASCAR drivers, teams, and fans continue the march towards progress. Then you saw LeBron talk about all athletes standing with Bubba Wallace. I think sports fans have a responsibility. Sports fans have a responsibility to support Bubba Wallace. And I think we've seen Alvin Kamara do this. Alvin Kamara, in response to NASCAR banning the Confederate flag, said, "When's the next race?" And his Twitter feed since then has been filled with him going to the race. He went to the race in Miami. He's wearing Bubba Wallace gear. And NASCAR made a new fan with Alvin Kamara. I think, look, I didn't grow up a NASCAR fan. I grew up in Northeast. It's not part of, the sporting world. And I know it's a big sport. And I'm like, oh, I think if you're like me, you have a responsibility to support Bubba Wallace. And if you look at everyone else you've been a fan of since you were a little kid to now, what do you look for in someone that you support, someone that you're a fan of? Bravery, courage, perseverance. That's all there with Bubba Wallace. And he said in his statement, Jenna, that he was overwhelmed by the support that he's received. And I think that as sports fans, the larger sport fan community, that we should make that support tenfold. And if you're looking for someone to root for, you found him in Bubba Wallace, and he's racing today at 3 o'clock, I think. And he's earned a fan in me, and I hope that millions of other people will support Bubba Wallace too.
Really well said, Kevin. I think you make a very good point. Broussard, Nick said this might have been a bubbling up of events that have happened over the course of the last couple of weeks. I wonder whether what happened last night surprised you. Were you surprised when you woke up this morning and you read about this?
No, not at all. In fact, I'd be surprised if many, if not any, African Americans were surprised. When you grow up black in this country, you get used to things like this, and obviously much worse happening. And Bubba Wallace is right. This won't break him. It won't break us. We've seen worse than this, and we'll continue to thrive. But to Nick's point, look, as this country tears down symbols and images of white supremacy, there are a lot of whites who behind closed doors are upset and seething. They may smile in public, they may be quiet in public, but privately they are angry because, as Nick said, this is what their life has been about. And this is painful for all Americans who love their country to admit. But these feelings are deep-seated because this country was not founded on freedom. It was not founded on Christianity. It was founded on racism and white supremacy. It's in the very fabric of the nation. So a lot of whites can't even fathom not living in that. They don't want equality. They want white superiority, which is the position they've been placed in for the last 400 years. And I believe to combat this, kind of along the lines of what Kevin was saying, whites who want equality and who are against racism must combat it not only publicly, but privately. Because I'm almost certain that whoever did put this noose up in Bubba Wallace's garage didn't do it alone. They probably told other whites. They probably joked about it with other whites. And nobody came strong enough to say, you cannot do this. Growing up, and contrary to what Nick said, I'm not that old, okay? He jokes, I'm not that old, okay? But when I was growing up, and sometimes I would be around whites who didn't know I was black, and I heard how they talked about blacks in disparaging ways. I heard them use the N-word. These are people who are maybe running corporations now, who are in charge of hiring and firing, who may be politicians. They're prominent people within society, and these are their attitudes. It's not just 70 and 80-year-olds who are about to die off. It's not just people in the South. Nick mentioned these nooses have been found in New York. People were lynched recently, blacks in California. And so these are, I say privately, whites have to be just as anti-racist as they are publicly.
And Broussard, to the point of, are you surprised? Your point that black Americans don't have the luxury of being surprised about something like this, I think is a great one. But what's also true is that if you know our country's history, I don't know how you could be surprised. There's an amazing book. I actually have it with me. I'm going to show it to you guys. It's called At the Hands of Persons Unknown. It is the best accurate, full history of lynching in America. And if you read that book, what you find out is lynchings were not just a couple guys, criminals undertaking in the cloak of night. They were very often encouraged and assisted by the local authorities, and many of them turned into parties. And by parties, I mean you would have, at the culmination of the lynching, 50 to 60 to 75 people with their children cooking out, playing music, having a party to celebrate the murder of the alleged assailant or whomever they had just rounded up. Why do I say that? A lot of those kids who went to those are still alive. This is not our ancient history. This is our history and present. In 1918, at the height of lynchings in America, U.S. House of Representatives member named Dyer proposed the Dyer anti-lynching bill. That was in 1918. Do you know when that finally passed? This year and this month, the Senate rejected it. It's 2020. It took 102 years, Broussard, for an anti-lynching bill to actually finally fully have a chance of becoming law. And a couple weeks ago, the U.S. Senate said, let's pump the brakes on it. So I don't know how anyone can be surprised that this is the moment that we find ourselves in, Chris. Even though we are making progress forward, that progress forward is going to have a massive snapback effect. And I feel like that's what we're in the midst of right now, Chris.
Well, you touched on something very important, Nick. A lot of whites don't know the true history of this country. Now, I think whites are falling roughly into two categories as far. There are those that are racist and there are those that are ignorant. When you talk about ones that don't know the history, there are those that are straight up racist and those that are just ignorant of what African Americans endure and maybe have endured. They know we were enslaved, but they don't know the extent of it and they don't know what followed with Jim Crow. Because one thing that has to change, as well as these symbols and images, are the textbooks. Like, the textbooks need to be rewritten to reflect the true American history. So every American child, white, black, whatever their ethnicity or race, understands the true history in this country. And a lot of people might say, look, it was a prank, it's a joke. I mean, this stuff happens. Look, I get it in that there always will be prejudice. There always will be people, doing wrong things. That's just a part of the human condition. But when it comes to racism, because of the history of this country and really the world for the past 400 or 500 years, racial pranks cannot fall into that category. They have to be viewed as something much worse because too many people have died, too many people have been defrauded, too many people have died with their necks in those nooses. Too many people were killed after hearing the N-word. So racial pranks and things like that are much different and must be treated much more seriously than just the common prank or joke or even, you know, some nasty comment that somebody makes. That's always going to be a part of the human condition.
I agree, and I think it bears repeating that despite this despicable act, from the words of Bubba Wallace himself, this will not break me. We're going to take a break. We'll have much more First Things First right after this. Back here with Brian Westbrook, we're drawing a blank. Jets All-Pro safety Jamal Adams has made it quite clear he wants out of New York. Now we're hearing his preferred destination is the Cowboys. Adams liked a Photoshop on Instagram of himself in a Cowboys uniform. Then there was this. A fan asked if he's coming to Dallas, and he said, "I'm trying, bro." Camera work needs a little more work. But Nick, Jamal Adams reportedly wanting to be traded to the Dallas Cowboys is blank.
Great car choice by Jamal Adams, by the way. Love the G-Wagon. But
I know.
the answer to that is wishful thinking for Jamal. I understand why he wants to go to the Cowboys. They're a real contender this year. They have a need. It's 30 minutes from where he grew up. I get all of that. But there is no way, from a cap perspective, Dallas could do this. They already have one of the 3 highest paid players in NFL history at wide receiver, running back, inside linebacker, guard, and tackle. They are about to have one of the 3 highest paid players in NFL history at quarterback. You can't just, I understand the country might be moving towards a system where there's a handful of super rich and then a bunch of poor folks, but football teams can't do it. So I'm going to say a team that makes sense for Jamal Adams that wasn't on his list. What about Tampa Bay? Their window is right here and now, this year, maybe next year with Brady. They have an excellent defense, but safety is their biggest position of need. That's the team that should be calling the Jets. I don't see it happening for the Cowboys, Brian Westbrook, so I think it's wishful thinking.
You know, I think this is desperate, and I think Jamal Adams desperately wants to go to a contender. You saw the list of teams, the Ravens, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Texans, among others. He wants to go to a team that can win. He also wants good faith negotiations with the Jets here. He wanted it at some point, and by not receiving that offer in January, which he says that he was promised, that's not in good faith. This is what happens for teams. For teams, this is a business decision. This signing one of 53 guys or one of the players that you need to sign. For the players, this is personal. This is a personal decision. And I remember when I was going through the contract negotiations, it was always about I'm living on every single word that the GM was saying, the president was saying, because now I'm looking forward to getting my money. It was personal for me. And because he doesn't feel that the Jets have operated in good faith by not extending that offer in January, now it's a slap in the face. So he desperately wants to get out of New York.
I said doable, Jenna. His cap hit 7.2. The Cowboys got about $10 million. And here's my favorite term. I was like, eating money. So maybe the Jets will have to eat money, just like how the Texans had to pay some of like Jadeveon Clowney's salary. So maybe he ends up there, but the Jets would probably have to eat money. I should have used that as my word.
I love that every team.
Doable is boring.
That's good. All right, moving on to Tom Brady. So he had a little fun at Gronk's expense, commenting #SkinnyGronk on Tampa's Instagram post. Unlike me and most of my girlfriends, the all-pro tight end lost over 20 pounds during retirement and quarantine, but he says he's expected to be back to his playing weight in no time. Nick, Brady calling out #SkinnyGronk on the Bucs Instagram post is blank.
Listen, I don't want to overreact because you guys know I'm not prone to hyperbole, but I'm going to say this is ominous. And not, listen, I think some folks are like, well, part of what makes Gronk great is his blocking ability. How good of a blocker is he going to be at a lower weight? I'm not worried about that. I think Gronk, if he's healthy, is going to be excellent no matter what. I say ominous because as we've well established on this show, Brady and Chris Godwin are essentially already in the midst of a blood feud because Brady snatched his number and gave nothing for him. I feel like I was first on that story, and we continue to remind you of it. And now he's cyberbullying Gronk. So I mean, he's going to be in Tampa. I don't know who he's going to have on his side. Maybe Mike Evans, but that's about it. I feel like Gronk had a year away, was a WWE star, worked up for Fox, maybe is realizing that Brady's totalitarian nature is not always the way you have to do things. He teams back up with him, and immediately he goes online and makes fun of him. So I just think it's another sign of Tom Brady's deteriorating relationship with his teammates, Brian Westbrook. So I say it's ominous.
I say this is Step Brothers. We've all have seen the movie Step Brothers with Will Ferrell. And the only people that can make fun of you are the people that know you the best, the people that love you the most. And I think that's the exact relationship that Gronk and Tom Brady have. They make fun of each other. And now they are in a situation in Tampa, unlike what they had in New England, that they can enjoy it. They can have some fun. So to me, this is Step Brothers, Kevin. I love the relationship that they have. I think this will go into the season, and it'll be a much lighter season for both Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski.
Yes, Brian, you are 100% correct. America, I don't know what you're supposed to do with Nick Wright at this point. For the show's about 47 minutes, 13 minutes of commercials. I think Katana, get in my ear if that's wrong. Yeah. Nick that's about right. Speaks the truth for 46 minutes, and then we have a Buccaneers topic, and he just lies for 1 minute. It's just 1 minute. He's got 2% lying per show, and it's all about they weren't in a blood feud. He gave him his number. He volunteered number 12. It's not cyberbullying. It's one of his friends, and Gronk's not skinny. It's sarcasm. So, America, this is the 2% of the show you don't have to watch. Watch the rest, including the commercials, but this is the one part of the show that Nick just blatantly lies about. It's confusing, Jenna.
Liar. You liar, Nick. All right, now we're back.
Not really. It's just 2%.
Let's get to...
Hold on. Just if I may real quick, just because Brian made a lot of sense, Wilds didn't. Brian, if I do remember Step Brothers correctly, the crescendo of that movie were those two guys crashing a boat off the coast of Florida. So I do see the analogy because I feel like that's the direction we could be going in this. That's all. I mean, that's how I remember the movie. That's all.
I got to watch that today. On to a debate among Westbrooks.
Yes.
Our very own Brian Westbrook and his wife arguing over whether this outfit right here is acceptable to wear out of the house. From the boots to the jorts to the cowboy hat, there's a lot to take in here. Nick, Brian Westbrook's fashion choice is blank.
B, you know I love you, man. But this is simply indefensible. And it's a shame, because if we could just bisect that picture right down the middle, the right side of that picture is amazing. You have a great photo of you and your amazing wife hanging in the background. What looks to be like a very nice but kind of scary guard dog. I think that's a German Shepherd. You also have at your feet a cart for your daughter with a doll showing involved father on Father's Day weekend. I love all of it. But then everything to the other side of it is just a travesty. I understand, Brian, that you, to your credit, you're the same size as when you graduated Villanova. But what's changed in that 20-some years is jorts are not acceptable in any setting whatsoever, including the privacy of your own home. The cowboy boots look ridiculous with the jorts. The only thing I can get with is the undershirt, because you got the physique to pull it off. But it's indefensible by Brian, and I can't believe he put it on the internet.
No, the only critique I had, Brian, is the other day before the show, I tried to sneak in that I wanted a Westbrook Farms shirt. I was like, hey, Brian, I was on your website, saw the Westbrook Farms shirt. That's cool. But I didn't really ask for it. I was just like, oh, is it Eagles green? He's like, no, not really. But I never straight up asked. And I check my mailbox every day. I'm like, maybe Brian got the hint. Zippo. I'm over. So other than that, I would like the Westbrook Farms shirt, but I think it's a great look.
Brian, you're getting
you have
crushed. Defend yourself, my friend.
I know. Well, let me start here. You have to start at the top, at the hat. A cowboy hat can be both casual and fun. So you can wear a T-shirt with a cowboy hat or a suit. So cowboy hats work with everything. Then you go with the tank top. The tank top is all about the gun show. Let the guns out a little bit. Let the arms and shoulders show just a little bit. Now, here's the part where I may have miscalculated things. The jorts. Now, in my opinion, jean shorts were still in style. I didn't know until my social media followers let me know that jean shorts are no longer in style and they should be abolished and no longer brought back. I didn't know that until this past weekend. Now, let's go to the cowboy boots because this is a real situation. I know people that have never ridden a horse. I know people that have never seen a cow that have cowboy boots. I bet you Jenna has a pair of cowboy boots in her closet. And cowboy boots,
they've never touched mud.
This outfit, this look is fashion show worthy. I should be getting a fashion show on FS1 coming soon, next week or the week or two.
Brian,
set that up for me.
Ask yourself this: would I wear this outfit on television? If your answer is I'm not sure, then you got to rethink it, and we'll start with the shorts. But speaking of Cowboys, gentlemen, and I'm proud of you for wanting to. Yeah, go ahead.
Nick has shorts on right now. He wouldn't wear that on TV. I'm sure Kevin has shorts on as well. I'm not sure what you have on the bottom side, Jenna.
I'm wearing a full suit. I don't know what you're talking about.
And we won't even guess.
I've got jean shorts on.
Speaking of, I hope not. Speaking of Cowboys, it's too early in the morning. With Dak Prescott back in the saddle, is Dallas an instant Super Bowl contender? Next on First Things First. Back here at Brian Westbrook, talking the Dallas Cowboys now. Dak Prescott, who will reportedly sign his $31.4 million exclusive franchise tender today. The two sides, the Cowboys and Dak, still have until July 15th to work out a long-term deal. Look, Nick, it's a step in the right direction. We've been talking about this for months, but looking ahead now, you expect the Cowboys to get a long-term deal done with Dak by that July 15th franchise tag deadline?
Well, Jenna, I'd love to give you a definitive answer. And I know that's kind of the whole idea of sports television is definitive answers and back it up. Yeah. And I feel like I usually do a pretty good job of that. But I must admit, every step of this negotiating process has baffled me because each party seems to be doing things for the other side, yet they're embroiled in this 16-month war. The Cowboys, every chance they get, give Dak Prescott flowers, hire a head coach, excited to work with Dak Prescott. He's the face of the franchise. He's going to be here forever, just continuing to up his leverage. And then when Dak finally actually has real leverage, which is we do have a new coach, we are a Super Bowl contender. This is an odder offseason than anyone's ever had. What if I'm not there? 3 weeks before the deadline to sign the tag, he's like, by the way, guys, don't worry about it. I'll be there. Let me sign it. I don't understand. But it's a sign in the right direction. Dak gave up the only real piece of leverage he had for this season, which is, yeah, I'll play for you, but I'm going to miss all the offseason. The moment he signs this, they know, and essentially now they know, he's going to be there the entirety of the offseason. But the reason I think Dak has been so strident in his stance is he knows, he already knew pre-pandemic, he held the hammer of, do you really want to tag me in back-to-back years? And while this is something you and I were talking about before the show, if they end up having to tag him this year, and he can hold the hammer of next year's $38 million because of what could happen with the cap, that could be devastating for Dallas. He already has the biggest cap hit in football this season, and at $31 million. $38 million Wilds, I feel like, could be untenable for them. So maybe that's why Dak has been able to be like, it's 4 years, it's $35 million a year at a minimum, and I'm not moving off of it because he knows next season $38 million is not doable for him.
Yeah, so if it's not doable because of the gate, the NFL loses the entire gate. We don't know how the season's going to play out, how many fans, if any fans, will be able to be allowed in the stadium. That's a big revenue loss. So if the cap goes down from 200, who knows what it ends up, but that $38 million number doesn't move. That's why I think eventually the deal gets done. July 15th is the deadline. Jay Glazer said, look, it's going to get done one way or another. Dak is going to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys for a long, long time. I think most football fans are sort of like have wrapped their head around that. Like, look, he's the quarterback of the Cowboys. I don't want to have to break out a spreadsheet every time I talk about the NFC East. So, Brian, I think that Dak is sort of locked into Dallas one way or another.
You know, Kevin, I kind of feel like he's locked in, but I think he was forced to be locked in. And I kind of agree with Nick. I'm surprised that Dak signed this so long before the deadline, the July 15th deadline. And here's the reason why. You had up until that point decided just to try to get a long-term deal. But this is what I think Dak is made of. He wants to get in. He wants to work. This is the reason why I believe Dak has signed this deal. He wants to go find out and figure out that new offense. He wants to be with Mike McCarthy. He wants to show you the type of leader that has made him the guy that I think deserves his contract. He's been the face of that franchise. He's been a leader in the locker room. He stepped up and said things when it was tough to say those things. And by the way, he's coming off his best season in his career. So he wants to get with Mike McCarthy. He wants to learn the offense. He knows that he's coming off the best season of his career. But not only that, he's gotten more weapons. He adds CeeDee Lamb. You get another year of Michael Gallup. You have Amari Cooper under contract as well as Zeke. And so now he has the ability to not only have a better season than he had last year, but a better record. So when they go back to the table, and I don't think the deal gets done, the long-term deal gets done before July 15th, but after the season, the Cowboys have to either say they're going to give him $38 million or we're going to give you a long-term deal. And I think at that point, Dak asked for more money coming off this season, a good season, him betting on himself than he did before. So to me, I'm surprised. But now I think that Dak has backed the Cowboys into a relative corner by saying, okay, I'm going to come in, but I also will be expecting to go out there and have a great season. And when I do, I'm going to either want more money or a much bigger part of your cap with that $37 million hit.
It's such a great point, Brian. He's got a great team. He knows it. He's got a new coach. He's got tons of weapons, and he wants to get in there. So, Nick, let's spin it forward a little bit. Now that he's most likely going to be showing up for training camp and play for the season under center, is this a Super Bowl team, this Dallas Cowboys team?
Oh, I think that they can make the case. There's no team in the NFC demonstrably better than them. Listen, I think the two best teams in football are Kansas City and Baltimore, and I believe one of those two is overwhelmingly likely to come out of the AFC. But there is not a clear great team in the NFC, or not a team that is clearly greater than Dallas. I think Dallas's biggest issue last year was coaching, and that Jason Garrett's message, for lack of a better term, had gotten stale. And even though McCarthy had some issues at the end of his run in Green Bay, I think he is obviously a professional, better than average at the very least head coach that on his second time around will fix up some of the things he did wrong in Green Bay. But look around the rest of the conference. Like, who are the best teams? Green Bay, who I would say had a tumultuous offseason, did not get demonstrably better, and you worry all of a sudden about the relationship they have with their best and most important player. New Orleans is the Vegas favorite out of the NFC, but they do have a 40-year-old quarterback that at the end of the season 2 years ago dipped down, and the very end of last season dipped down. There's Seattle. I like Seattle a lot. You wonder if they're going to innovate their offensive scheme enough to really compete for a championship in modern football. And then there's San Francisco. Even if you're not worried about the Super Bowl hangover part of it, I do worry about the overall level of their quarterback, certainly now that Emmanuel Sanders is gone and Deebo Samuel is hurt. So I don't think there's a team better positioned than Dallas as far as the preseason favorites. Are they my pick to go to the Super Bowl? Probably not, Wilds. But if you pick them, I don't think it's like, well, how can you do that when they have this glaring weakness? I don't see a glaring weakness on the roster, Wilds.
Yeah, that you reserve that in case anyone picks the Buccaneers. That's Nick breaks out the hammer of the glaring weakness excuse. Look, they're favored to win the NFC East. They're the fourth best odds to win the entire NFC, and they've got the sixth best odds to win the Super Bowl. So, Brian, it's the actual answer is like, yeah, they've got a great chance. The question I have, and the question I have for you, is first-year coach. Do you think that is like, hey, new blood, let's get in here, new momentum, brand new? Does that help or hurt them on their path to the Super Bowl?
Well, I agree with you. I think it's new blood, new momentum, and I think that's the reason why Dak signed the deal so early, so they can get in there and work with Mike McCarthy, who I believe he thinks can better him as a quarterback coming off a career year. But I think this helps that football team. What the Dallas Cowboys have proven over the last couple of years is that they could have the most talent in the NFC. They can have the best players. They can have all these different things. However, the wins in the playoffs have been lacking. At this point, until that happens, then we can't really say that these Dallas Cowboys are a playoff contender or a Super Bowl contender for that matter. They have to find a way to win some of these big-time games. And until I'm proven differently, the NFC East goes through Philadelphia. And until Dallas can do it,
spoken
not
like
on paper,
a true
but
former
actually
Eagle,
on
Brian.
the field. Well, of course, I'm speaking from my heart, but my mind is also
I know
speaking
you
as well.
are.
Until they can do it on the field, we don't know what the Dallas Cowboys are. They've always had one of the best offensive lines. They've always had one of the better running backs. They've had good receiving core in the past. Now they have to show it on the field. Dak came off a great year personally as far as his numbers, but the team did not win a lot of games, didn't even make it to the playoffs. So it's a different perspective, and I think Mike McCarthy can help this team get over that hump just a bit.
I
guess
you think
the
they need to prove it
pushback
in the
would be
postseason first?
Listen, there's not a team. The Eagles are the team in the NFC East that's proven it in the postseason, but their quarterback wasn't there for it. So you feel like both teams kind of need to prove it in the postseason. Last year, Dallas and Philly were the same. Flip a coin to say who you think was better. I know Philly ended up winning the division, but I feel like Dallas had a far better offseason than Philly. They got better at head coach. That doesn't say Mike McCarthy's better than Doug Peterson, but the Cowboys were at a massive deficit against the Eagles, in my opinion, at head coaching spot. That now changed. The Cowboys drafted the wide receiver I'm sure Philly would have loved to have been able to take with their first-round pick. And going into the draft, we said Philly was the team, not Dallas, that desperately needed that wide receiver. And I would say they both suffered an impromptu loss along their offensive line. Travis Frederick's retirement combined with Brandon Brooks' torn Achilles. So to me, those cancel each other out. So I just think Dallas is the better overall team right now within that division. And what both those teams have going for them, Jenna, as far as making the postseason, being Super Bowl contenders, is you have two of, I believe, the worst teams in the entire league in Washington and the Giants that you get a quarter of your schedule against.
No offense, New York and Washington. All right, let's talk some boxing, guys, where Mike Tyson has his eyes set on his next opponent. Next on First Things First. Time now for stories to start your morning, starting with Brady behind the scenes. If you think TB12 only prepares like the GOAT for a football game, wait till you see how the guy prepares for a photo shoot. Oh, the exact same way. The Bucs came out with a new series called The Current. It gives us a behind-the-scenes look at Brady's uniform reveal photo shoot. I mean, Nick, can we get any more hype leading up to Brady's first season in Tampa?
Well, probably not more hype, but you know what I noticed, Wilds? My biggest takeaway.
Oh, boy, here we go.
I don't see any of his teammates with him. I mean, I remember Coach Mangini famously talks about all the time. They win the Super Bowl in 01. Brady gets asked to do a commercial, and he says, only if all my offensive linemen can come with me. That was New England Tom. That wasn't warm weather Tom. That wasn't Tampa Tom. I hardly recognize this guy. I just wild the Brady I knew wouldn't do these solo act stuff, but I guess different guy in now that he's down in Florida, just continues the trend. He's got the blood feud with Godwin because he took his number. He's cyberbullying Gronk, and now he's doing solo photo shoots. So I just more concerned for your beloved Bucs, Wilds.
No, not my beloved Bucs. That's not how graphic design works, Nick. In the little box where it says Tom Brady needs to run his bio, you can't have 14 guys in the picture. Tom Brady is team-centric first. He knows he has to do his job, take some pictures. And don't listen to Nick on this Tom Brady stuff. My goodness. Sorry, Broussard. Go ahead.
This is Nick hating because he fears the Buccaneers. That's all this is. It's a simple explanation, Nick. Brady has not met his new teammates yet. He has to meet them first. Then he gets their cell numbers. Then he can text them to come. But he has no way of reaching these guys. So that's the explanation. It's that simple.
All right, moving on to you got roasted, Nick. Bench press beast that is Aaron Donald, the Rams all-pro defensive tackle, casually bench pressing 225 for 35 reps. Obviously, you know what I'm going to say. I want to see full extension here, but it's still a great effort by the guy. Hey, Broussard, does seeing this get you more excited for the Rams this year or more excited for your workout later this morning?
My workout, Jenna, and I knew there would be haters like you that would say he's not giving full extension. Look, I've done 225, 35 times. It is still impressive, even if you're not fully extended. It's still very difficult to do. Trust me. Trust me.
Great.
Oh, I know. I've done it.
The record, the combine record, Justin Ernest from Eastern Kentucky, the combine record's 51. He did it 51 times. That went undrafted. So I don't know. I feel like the bench press is a little bit overrated.
Listen, my takeaway there, aside from it's wildly impressive, and obviously if you want to take workout tips from Jenna over Aaron bleeping Donald, so be it. But I got to tell you, you know what my takeaway was at the very end of that video? You know what we saw around Aaron Donald? Teammates. Guys he likes. Guys he's hanging out
more
with.
of this.
Must be nice. I mean, it was just good for him. Good for the Rams. Good for him. Their best player and their leader knows he's going to be getting attention, but he wants to share the love a bit. Nice.
Joker versus the King, guys, where tennis star Novak Djokovic showcased his basketball skills while calling out LeBron for a one-on-one challenge. The King responded with a compliment on Djokovic's follow-through. Wild's two kings of their respective courts. Who would be better in the other person's arena? Djokovic playing basketball or LeBron at tennis?
I mean, it's got to be a LeBron at tennis because Djokovic, this is embarrassing. If I was Djokovic, I wouldn't even put this online. And LeBron is like the nicest person in the world. Not to just roast him. Look at this. This is horrible. Horrible. And I'm sorry that this doesn't even belong on a sports show, Broussard. Terrible.
Well, the shot wasn't bad. That's the slowest between the legs dribble I've ever seen. The shot was okay. This gives me visions of Bill Hader and LeBron in Trainwreck. That's exactly what this reminded me of.
Yeah, I actually saw that.
All right, I feel like you guys are being way unfair to Djokovic here. The shot was the whole point. He's trying to stare into the camera. He mishandles right there for a moment, but he's okay. I actually think, listen, neither could compete against the other one in their sport, but I have no idea if LeBron's any good at tennis whatsoever. What is interesting is in tennis right now, when we talk about the NBA, we say there's three guys who have a case for the greatest player ever. LeBron, the correct answer, Kareem, the forgotten one, and Jordan, who everyone else thinks. That's what tennis is, except they're all active. Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer, your three GOATs of all time, are all currently playing against each other. You never get to see that, but I like Djokovic here. I like the video. And Wilds, why don't you post a video of you playing basketball? You make Djokovic look so bad. I want to see it.
I'm going to have to edit that out, Nick. That's why you don't have an MVP vote, saying that was an okay video.
On to a Gasol brother.
Oh, my God.
On to a Gasol brother, guys, who is hitting his mark. The Raptors' 35-year-old big man, Marc Gasol. Saw what I did there? Not looking so big these days, with a recent photo showcasing that Gasol has used quarantine to slim down. He and Gronk, apparently. Broussard, you surprised by the new svelte-looking Gasol?
Well, first, I just got a text from the NBA office saying Nick will never get a vote with takes like that. So, sorry, Nick.
I tried to protect him, Broussard.
You tried. You should have texted him before the show or something. But Gasol, he looks like Powell. And what I'm concerned is, where's the social distance? A little too close.
Huh?
Pretty close.
Huh. Nick, I want you to make up here. Have like a great take on Gasol. Maybe the league can get your momentum back for your Rookie of the Year MVP voting status.
I'm happy for Gasol. I actually think the weight loss looks fitting on him, unlike what we saw with Jokic, not Djokovic, but Nikola Jokic, who lost the weight and he looks like a totally different person. But speaking of NBA awards voting and Marc Gasol, it is people such as Chris Broussard and the fraudulent, I'm really never going to get a vote. Some of the fraudulent NBA voters already that gave Marc Gasol the 2013 Defensive Player of the Year. 2013 Defensive Player of the Year when he wasn't even first team all defense, instead of who it should have gone to, the man who came in second, LeBron. That year, LeBron was one vote away from being unanimous league MVP. Gary Washburn, I'll never forget it, voted for Melo. Broussard and others like, hey, Marc Gasol, take his Defensive Player of the Year. They won 27 straight games. They won the title. It would have been the single greatest season anyone's ever had in the history of the sport, but the voters erroneously gave Defensive Player of the Year to Gasol. If I had a vote, that wouldn't have happened.
Never.
Things would have been better.
At this point, you're never getting a vote.
Vote's over.
All right.
It's all true.
Moving on to McGee from 3. The Lakers' big man using his free time before the season restarts to work on his long-range game. McGee has 5 career three-pointers, which isn't bad over a 12-year career. Nick, will LeBron have even more assists now that JaVale is hitting threes?
JaVale needs to never, ever shoot one of these ever. He's not a stretch 5. The Lakers do not have a stretch 5. JaVale and Dwight need to never take any shot outside of 4 feet. In fact, they don't even really need to take shots. Dunks and putbacks. Now, the form looks a little Djokovic-esque, if I might say. The form looks good.
No, it looks
but they
great.
don't need this Wilds. No, not interested.
Stresses
not
you
interested.
out.
Too bad.
I think he looks great. I thought this video was on a loop. He just keeps on making threes. I mean, I know it's on a loop a little bit, but he makes about 5 or 6 in a row there. I don't understand why anyone is upset. Remember when Dwight Howard said he was going to take threes? They were like, oh, no, I don't want you to take threes. This looks great. Broussard, this is he's adding something to his game.
He looks much better than Dwight. Look, Jenna, you said it. He's 5 for 33 in his career, but he's 3 for 6 this year. That's 50%. Look, that looks pretty good to me. It's not going to be a part of their offense, but I wouldn't be surprised if he throws up the occasional 3 in the playoffs.
See, everyone's working on the threes coming back to the NBA restart.
That would be terrible.
All right, guys,
terrible idea.
let's end with a fighting chance. Mike Tyson recently called out UFC star John Bones Jones, who I read as John Bon Jovi all morning until I went back and reread it, saying the two would have to box if Jones wanted to see $100 million super money. John Jones responded by tweeting, "I'm listening." All right, Wilds, you're a boxing guy. Would this be a must-watch fight?
I am not the boxing guy. I am just an interest guy, and I am interested in this. I never thought the boxing, Tyson versus Holyfield, I didn't think that was going to work. I thought the parallel was Conor versus Mayweather, and Mayweather got 250, and Conor got 100, and any idea that he would do bare-knuckle boxing for $1 million or $5 million, no. You have to have, as we start with $100 million, and then we can go somewhere, Nick.
Here's the problem for John Bones Jones, who, despite his personal demons, might be the single greatest mixed martial artist of all time. The order of operations here, Broussard, is a disaster for him. He's saying he'll get Tyson in the octagon after in the ring. There ain't gonna be no after in the ring. Like, whichever guy gets their style first, that's the first and last of these. So I just feel for John Bones Jones, you'd have to go octagon first to have any chance to even get to the boxing match.
I totally agree, Nick. Look, as much as I love Tyson, at 53, I tremble the thought of seeing him in the ring just at that age. That said, he would demolish John Bones Jones inside of 2 rounds, if that. I mean, once he connects, it's over, period.
It's over. It's over. It's over, Jenna.
It stresses me out just watching him fight. Is this on a loop? This is probably on a loop. We got to go. Thanks so much,
Jenna, it's John
Broussard.
Bon
We're back
Jovi in
here
there.
tomorrow morning. Much more First Things First.
The John Bon Jovi
Have a great day,
fight
everyone.
will
Stay
also be
safe.
interesting.